A federal judge has just blocked the Trump administration's attempts to deport Kilmer Abrego Garcia, stopping their efforts to weaponize the whole deportation process. I'm Shant Karnikian. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. I'm joined by Brian Kabateck, my co-host. If you like this content, hit that subscribe button. Today, we're trying to unpack this issue of what's happening, the latest update with Kilmer Abrego Garcia, who was already once wrongfully deported and back in the United States. And now the Trump administration is still trying to weaponize their inhumane deportation process. Brian, where do we start with this one?
Well, here's what's going on. Is that, as we know, he was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. The administration has already admitted it was, I think they called it an administrative mistake or something like that. And he comes back in this country, and because it's a political hot potato, they immediately charge him with human trafficking. They claim that these charges seem to be dubious. I believe there's already one judge who said this looks very dubious. It looks like the people who are the witnesses against him are people who themselves have charges pending and are making plea deals. So he gets released from custody. He's immediately has to report to an immigration office where he's picked up. Now, here's what happened in the interim. He was offered a deal because they are so desperate to have him plead to this alleged crime of human trafficking. They offer him a plea deal, and they say, serve time, and then you can be deported to Costa Rica. He can't go to El Salvador for political reasons. So he can go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is lovely. I've been to Costa Rica. It's beautiful. Beaches. They're dangling that in front of him. But they say, if you don't accept our deal, we're going to deport you to Uganda. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Uganda. First of all, it's in Africa. They don't speak Spanish there. He doesn't speak any language besides Spanish. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that there is a deal to take people, nothing to do about this gentleman whatsoever, just generally that there's a deal, but they want people without criminal records, no unaccompanied minors, and they want African nationals, which appears that he doesn't meet these criteria. But apparently there's an agreement out there, Shant, that's been reported that there were economic concessions such as a reduced U.S. tariff on Uganda products such as coffee and cocoa. And we're not going to go into in the show how much I like cocoa.
Well, and he's not even a Salvador. I mean, he's a Salvador national. He's not a Uganda national.
That's right.
You know, it's Uganda's not exactly a bastion of human rights and civil rights. They have well-documented human rights abuses, violent crackdowns on criminals, but also violent crackdowns on marginalized groups of society, like, you know, folks that are LGBTQ, lots of corruption. And I don't think someone like this can be, they still have rights when you're deporting someone. They still have rights. I mean, that's part of the reason why he can't be sent to El Salvador, because I believe in 2019, there was a finding that he'd be threatened by gangs there. So there's a whole process. There's a whole body of law, and we can't just throw it all out and say, well, you're either agree to what we want or you're going to Uganda. That's like a crazy ultimatum that they've presented him with.
Well, Uganda does have their human rights issues there. It seems, and I'm not the only person who said this, that this is vindictive, that this is, you either take the sweetheart deal that we're offering you, or we're going to send you to a country where you don't speak the language, where you're going to be potentially subject to human rights violations. And then on top of it, Sean, there is also information that there's nothing that would prevent Uganda from turning right around and sending them to El Salvador. So there's no protection there for him whatsoever. Now, this is the interesting sort of legal part about this, is that his team has filed both a lawsuit and a habeas petition just a couple of days ago.
So let's talk about the habeas petition. Explain what that is and why it's such a sacrosanct thing in the United States.
Right. So it's something that actually goes back to the founding of the United States. And because of our origins in England, where people could be picked up and thrown to prison, the petition for habeas corpus, or writ of habeas corpus, which is technically called, basically means an order against the person holding you. So quite often you will see habeas lawsuits or petitions filed against the warden, because that's the person who actually holds the body. That's what it generally means. And when you're holding a body and you file a habeas petition, you're asking them to justify why the person's being held. So that's the actual habeas petition. And the habeas petition was resulted in the judge's finding that an order that you cannot move this person from the continental United States, which I guess I mean Hawaii's out of the question, until there's been further proceedings. And apparently members of the Trump administration are being ordered to come and testify.
Yeah, because the judge, I think, wants to know, is this about enforcement or is this motivated by punishment? And before you say, well, what's wrong with punishing this guy? Well, there has been no finding of human trafficking. That's an allegation. And last I checked, this is the United States and people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And I don't know, maybe this guy's just a vicious, horrible criminal, but there hasn't been a finding. I mean, if they want to punish him and use that as the basis for, locking him up, deporting him, sending him to Uganda or some other crazy place, then let them prove that. Let them go to trial on that and prove it and and get a conviction. That hasn't happened. So before anyone on the right looks at us and goes, wow, why are you out there defending these people? Well, because this is the United States, that presumption of innocent is a fundamental feature of being an American, being in this country. It's a fundamental protection, just like the First Amendment and other protections that we have in this country. So yeah, the judge wants to know and is considering ordering testimony from Trump officials to determine whether or not this deportation is about enforcement, which would be proper, and why this is Uganda is a proper place to deport him to, or is it about punishment, which is just political retribution, and that would not be a proper basis or reason for doing this.
We talked about this before, Shant, which is everyone in the United States is entitled to due process, and I've seen people on the far right make outlandish claims, clearly missed that day in law school, that the Constitution doesn't apply to people who are not U.S. citizens. It applies to everyone inside and within the domain and control of the United States, the Constitution, and that includes the due process clause. So he's entitled to due process. He's been accused of a crime, and like you say accurately, we don't know specifically. We do know a judge has already called into question whether or not the charges against him are valid and whether or not the people who are coming out against him are basically being rewarded for testimony, in order to railroad this guy. Could be legitimate as well, but he's entitled to his day in court. And when they come out, and it's pretty unheard of. Now, it's not unheard of in the criminal justice system to say, if you plead guilty, we'll send you to county jail for 10 months. But if you don't, then we're going to ask the judge for the maximum penalty. You could be in prison for 3 years. That's fine. Here, it's completely different. It's if you plead guilty and do jail time, we'll send you to Costa Rica. If you don't, we're going to immediately, without due process, send you to Africa, where, you could be, as I said, subject to human rights violations. So they also filed a lawsuit. So let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit, Shant, that they filed and why that's different than the habeas petition.
Yeah. So I think the lawsuit was filed by his wife, right? And what's she seeking in there, Brian? Tell us about that.
No, well, there's a lawsuit filed by a wife, but there's also a lawsuit that he's filed and his legal team has filed, basically asking that to stop this decision to send him to Uganda. So it's different than the habeas petition. It's nuanced, but it's different because what it's saying is you can't send him there because there's no real cultural family relationship whatsoever. So instead of a habeas petition to release the person, this is to, if you're going to deport him, you can't send him there. And that's different. So the lawsuit is going to move along a little slower than the habeas petition, but it's a smart legal move by his team.
Yeah. And his wife's lawsuit, by the way, was for what happened in March when he was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. And I think there's no dispute that was a wrongful deportation. Again, it seems weird to say, but I'm kind of pointing out the obvious here. We're not defending this person's the alleged conduct he engaged in. We're not saying that he's a good person or something. This is how you uphold fundamental rights, right? You look at the extreme examples. You look at kind of like the ugliest possible scenarios and you say, the law should apply even to this, because if we don't apply it here, where are we going to draw the line? This is a slippery slope argument. And then that's kind of my final take on this. This is an important issue. We'll keep following it. And there is a lot at stake here. This is bigger than just Kilmer Abrego Garcia himself. This is bigger than just this particular effort to deport someone. There's a lot at stake here. And I hope the courts, do the right thing and they uphold the rights that are entitled to everyone in this country. Brian, your thoughts?
No, I don't think I can add anything to that. I think that this is just obviously that this guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. he got swept up in this. And this demonstrates what the administration does, which is they're like a dog with a bone. They won't let go. They won't just concede. They had an opportunity months and months ago to say, yes, we improperly deported a number of these people. We made a mistake. We're bringing them back. We're going to follow the judge's order. And they keep doubling down. And that's demonstrative of what the Trump administration is all about. It's not about making America a better place. It's putting America into the vision they have of it for themselves. So that's my last thought. Let's keep following this, Shant.
We'll keep following this and we'll see how it shakes out. I have hope here. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. If you like this content, hit that subscribe button. We love hearing your feedback and your comments. We'd love to hear more from you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.